We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Elizabeth Mendez. I am the GTEAC president. We also have Marissa Austin. I don't know if you can see her screen. She's there. And Felicia Perez, who is our secretary. And then we have, of course, our guest, Mr. Andrew Sharos. Real quick, and then we're going to let Mr. Sharos speak. Let me see. Here's our social media. I'm assuming everybody on here has been able to follow us and see our Zoom and everything like that. That's how you were able to get on. So if you have not, please follow, please join Remind. I send out messages to remind of the meetings and everything. So you have all of our social media accounts there. Here's our board. Again, I'm Elizabeth Mendez. I am the president, Felicia Perez, secretary, Marissa Austin, historian and social media. She's been letting everybody, making sure everybody stays aware of everything. And then we have Miss Hughes, our treasurer. Just real quick, this is from Northside as far as the everything you didn't know you needed to know. We promoted this at our first meeting. We want to make sure everybody has access to it. This is from Dr. Kraft, wanted to make sure that all of our parents had access to this. It was very vital information for those who are freshmen becoming seniors, stuff that they didn't know they needed to know. So again, that is there for you. And then we have Mr. Sharos. So go ahead, Mr. Sharos. Let me stop sharing my screen so you can share yours.
How's that? Can everyone see that? Give me a thumbs up if you can see that.
Yes, we can see
All
it.
right. All right. That's good. Well, good evening, everybody. First of all, I think it's amazing that this parent group exists. I'm coming to you live from Chicago, and we don't have stuff like this, particularly for gifted and talented. So kudos to all of you for the investment in your kids' education and signing on online. What a creative way to do this. I know it's hard with after school stuff and work and sports and dinner and life, and but just to spend a half an hour or so with us talking about the importance of supporting our students and gifted, I think is a noble cause, and I'm happy to be a part of it. So, just a little bit about me. So, I've worked with your teachers for a couple years now. I'm very familiar with a lot of your gifted teachers, and so my goal today is kind of to give you a little bit of an insight into what we've been working on as a staff. And hopefully you've seen how that's translated for your kids and in the schools in your district. And then kind of the second goal I have is to talk a little bit about how you can support us as teachers and as gifted students and what the expectations are today of students and parents. So unfortunately, you're stuck with me for about the next 10 or 15 minutes. And then I'd really appreciate if we could make this more interactive. I just got off the phone with a group of teachers from Las Vegas that were doing a book study. I was on with a group of teachers from Hawaii yesterday, super late because we're way ahead of them time wise. So I always enjoy learning from others, including yourself. So if there's an opportunity selfishly that I can take to learn from you, I'm gonna steal that as well. So here's kind of the agenda for the day. We're gonna talk a little bit about expectations, then we'll do some questions. So if you could see my screen, I do want to admit that we do come from different areas of the country, and I'm raising a 7, 9, and 11-year-old, so not everything that I'm saying you might agree with, but hopefully we can find some things that we all agree on by the end of this. That's what's good for kids and good for supporting our teachers. So, as mentioned, I just published my third book. It's called Kids Can. It's really a reaction to some of the concerning trends we've seen with students in education post-pandemic and what we can do to help the kids who are struggling the most. So I start first really with the kids that are the most gifted though. My most successful book was my first one. I wrote that for the AP community, a guide to teaching and leading AP programs. So it's called All Fours and Fives, and it's kind of built off the success story of the students that I used to teach. And hopefully, if you pick up one of those books, you'll find the spirit as a parent and willing to support your kids and kind of the story behind gifted education, but also kids who are struggling as well. So I start first with this chart that was published by the College Board, who's very highly involved in gifted education from the SAT suite of assessments to AP classes, and it's pretty much kind of the standard in most states for how students are tested. And if you look at this, you'll notice that over the course of the last 5 to 10 years or so, we're seeing a rising graduation rate, but we're also seeing a decline in the average SAT score. And there's a lot of variables for that, like No Child Left Behind kind of made sure that every student took the ACT about 20 years ago, so that we had more students taking it who maybe traditionally wouldn't take it. The pandemic certainly had its effect on certain groups of students. But at the same time, I think the graduation rate, whether we are just passing kids just to pass them, or whether we are lowering our expectations in American high schools, kids are finding ways to get D's and C's and kind of pass through our classes. And yet the achievement rate of what we're seeing on a standardized score is going down. So something's amiss, something's wrong with that. And I think our mission is to kind of figure out why and maybe what we can do about it. Another trend that we've seen recently is absenteeism, right? So if you're chronically absent in Texas, it means that you've missed 10% or more of the school day, or of the school year, I should say. So we're looking at about 18 days or so. You're considered chronically absent. We've also been tracking stats on teachers who are chronically absent. So if they call off because they're sick or their kids are sick or they're on vacation, absenteeism rate among teachers has also gone up. The good news is, as we get into 2025, we're starting to see those go down a little bit. How about math and reading scores? So most high school teachers now kind of feel like the pandemic is behind us, right? And the effects of what happened psychologically or even taking time off from class are over. But if you look at the kids who are in 4th through 8th grade, they're still achieving below the expected growth rate of our students pre-pandemic. If you look at those 3rd graders, though, however, they're actually doing better than the pre-pandemic students because a lot of those 3rd graders were like 2 or 3 years old and never in school. So my oldest was in kindergarten when the pandemic hit. He's now in 6th grade. That's a group that's been hit really hard. And when he was in kindergarten, he was learning how to read, right? So a really important skill that you're learning at a very young age, and you can see the effects of those students. Those students are still moving through the system and on into our high schools, right? So we're going to be working through this for a very long time. So one thing I want to take a look at is what I've learned about these 3 central questions. So you can maybe pipe up in the chat box or raise your hand or try to yell at me somehow. It's kind of hard for me to see the audience as I'm presenting or the chat box, but find some way to maybe draw my attention. As a parent, why do you want your kids in gifted classes? So here's what I typically hear from parents. I want my kid to challenge themselves. I see my student as a gifted student, and so I want that to be the pathway for him or for her. I don't want my students in classes with those other students, so take that maybe however you'd like. I know that the gifted pathway is going to give my student a better chance in college, right? It looks good on a resume, and I have high expectations for my kid, right? So those are the typical reasons that I'll hear from parents as to why you want your kids in gifted classes. And then there's a whole different set of answers that come with this question. Why does your child enroll in gifted classes or in my case, AP classes? And then you'll get all sorts of answers like, I want to do it because my friends are enrolled in it, or my parents told me that they wanted me to. Someone pushed me along the way. I'm interested in the subject level. I need it for the GPA boost. And you kind of look at all the reasons why the parents are saying you should do this, right? And all the reasons why the kids are saying that they should do this. And those reasons aren't necessarily the same. And then when you bring the third player in this equation into the fold and you talk about teachers, what are the main goals that teachers have for your kids? You won't hear any of those things. You'll hear, I want them to become better readers, better writers, better thinkers. I want them to become more confident in themselves. Some teachers will tell you, I want them to pass the exam at the end of the year, do really well on the STAR test, or pass the AP exam. But I want them to carry lifelong skills with them that have nothing to do with standardized tests, have nothing to do with grades, even though those seem to be the focus a lot of times for us as parents, right? And so I find myself oftentimes in this role of a salesperson because the goals of the teacher, the goals of the parent, and maybe what the student is trying to do in that class or why they're in there because their girlfriend's in there or for their buddies are in there or they have pressure to be in there. We're trying to convince kids of the reasons why this pathway is the right one for them. So a little bit of history, sort of how our story started. So I teach at West Leiden High School. If you've ever flown into O'Hare Airport, all the kids that live around West Leiden, they live right by O'Hare. So you see the homes of the kids that I teach. And you can learn a little bit about our demographics by looking at this chart compared to some of the other schools in our area. Certainly don't have the affluence and average household income. The ACT scores are a lot lower than the schools around us. But you can see that on the AP US history exam, all these other schools score at a very high rate on a 5-point scale. And our students actually scored a 4.45. They had the highest test scores in the state of Illinois for 2 years in a row. Our school was named AP School District of the Year. And despite the challenges, right, or despite what the data says our students should be doing or should not be doing, a core set of high expectations from a teacher and parents and a school that are all on the same page, no matter where our kids start from, we have the ability to kind of change the narrative, change the trajectory of where our students are at. So I invite you to kind of join in this crusade that I've worked with your teachers on creating a culture of high expectations at home and partnering with your teachers so that they also have those high expectations for your kid. Now, that doesn't mean more work necessarily, but it means higher expectations. And a lot of this comes from the research put out by John Hattie on visible learning for teachers. That takes a look at all the different factors that will affect whether or not a kid will be successful. So some of those factors are structural. They have to do with the way that we organize schools. Texas, you've got big ISDs, right? And you've got great opportunity for vertical alignment from kindergarten all the way through high school, where teachers can speak to each other and scaffold curriculum. But we spend money on these things in schools, the way that we're organizing them or the structure of the school. And Hattie's job is to figure out maybe where we get the most bang for our buck. Then there's plenty of other things within a student's life that I would consider to be personal. And whether they have a great supportive home life or whether we see challenges within their home, all of the things that you see on the screen may affect whether or not your student will succeed or not, based on a variety of other factors as well. There's also some things that are studied that we as teachers hold very sacred. So if you are a parent and a teacher, you know a little bit about some of these, but this is what we're trying to do with your students is different tactical methods of getting information across so that students can show us and demonstrate to us that they've learned and grown in their skills and their content. All the things that you see on the board right now are good, right? But their job in this study is to figure out which things provide the most chance for success for our students. And each year this study is updated, looking at a meta-analysis of data. The number one thing that we can do as parents and certainly as teachers is believe in our kids. So if a teacher believes that the students are capable of doing challenging academic work, there's a better chance that the student will be successful, regardless of anything that you just saw on your computer screen, anything that the way the school organizes, itself, anything that the teachers are trying to do or class, or any challenges that those students have at home, whether or not they're gifted or not. If we believe in our kids, there's a better chance that they'll be successful. So how does that translate, I think, to holding teachers accountable to make sure that they have high expectations for your kids, to make sure that they believe in them, but also speak that language at home? So I ask you, maybe not in a rhetorical sense, but in a conversational sense, what are some of the tactics that you use at home that you think convey high expectations to your son or daughter and that you think would eventually make their way into your teacher's classroom? So any questions on that I'll take, and then any answers or thoughts either in the chat box or or out loud, I'd be happy to entertain those.
We did have one question in the chat that was if the data you were showing was national
Yeah,
or
national. So
Texas.
again, I'm coming to you from Illinois, so it's easier for me to just take the national data. I would argue that outcomes in Texas were probably a little stronger than what you saw because your schools did not treat the pandemic the same way as New York, California, Illinois, some of the other areas where we didn't see kids for a couple years.
I have a question about keeping high expectations in the home.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
is that in expectations as in I expect you to get good grades or I expect you to limit screen time? I struggle with high expectations versus strictness,
Yeah.
and it's hard for me to like unlock the hand in hand of that.
I would probably speak to you here, and I appreciate that, Annalisa, more as a parent here than as a practitioner. But
Yeah.
we all know we experience any success in parenting, it usually comes from consistency, and so that
Some expert to help.
that
That's
our
how you
kids
get
know
parents.
exactly maybe what to
Okay,
expect
so start over
from
again.
us,
Matthew did what?
and that we're consistent in the way that we address them and that we do that. I think ways that I've tried to do that as a parent is that like we don't get to do the things that we want to do until we do the things that we have to do, and modeling that, right, coming home, getting dinner on the table, getting any work done that I need to, right, anything that I want to do doesn't come until we do the things that we have to do. And so if we kind of cut and paste that over to the way that we work with our students, I wonder if right they have to do their homework first. They have to show you their assignment notebook and what they had, or their Google Classroom or whatever platform they're looking at, so that sports come after academics, and social things come after academics, and their phone comes after academics. And I know that's hard sometimes because they've been in school for 7 or 8 hours, and when they get home, they probably want a breather. But I think consistency and expectations that my parents are involved in what's going on in the classroom. And high school teachers don't always do the best job at that. And high school parents don't always do the best job at that. I think the attendance at a kindergarten parent teacher conference is always going to be greater than a high school one. But we got to flip that script so that teachers and parents are both speaking the same language and kids get a similar message from the two most powerful forces in their life. The ones that spend the most time with their kids are you and their teachers.
Thank you. That sounds very realistic.
You
Thank you.
bet. You bet. Appreciate your question. Yeah, Marissa, I really appreciate your comment. I think, you know, any conversations that you have with staff or teachers, if you can parlay that into letting your child know that you're on the teacher's team and the teacher's on your team, and that the communication and the expectations are the same from school and home. Again, those are pretty positive forces that are going to work in your direction. And I think that I know that from a teacher's perspective, we really appreciate that. The timing of this is amazing because I just went to parent teacher conferences today for my three kids. And the one thing that I'm really looking for as a parent is, do you know my child? And I went to maybe 6 conferences total with different teachers. And I'd say 4 of the 6 like really knew my kid. And 2, it was just like the cookie cutter responses over and over, right? So if you really know my kid, then there's a because I really know my kid, there's a good chance that we can do some good things together. Yeah, I mean, Marissa, to your question, right? Kindergarten or eighth grader, I think it's involvement and investment, and I can't imagine that you're not willing to do that or that you're not already doing that because you're here right now. You know, parents that take advantage of every opportunity to learn more about how we do this in schools make for amazing partners for us as educators. So I think as a kindergartner, you're constantly speaking about what happened in school that day. What was your favorite moment of the day? a lot of times our kids will give us very vanilla answers like, it was good, it was okay, it was fine. And if you ever want to move beyond that, my number one strategy is asking them very specific questions about what's happening in school. So even if it's, what was the funniest thing that happened in school today? Or what was the moment where you were most confused in school today? Or what was the hardest thing that you did during the day? If we ask more specific questions, it doesn't just prove that we're invested and that we care about what's happening. And most of our kids are pleasers, right? They do care about what mom and dad think. But it also might get better responses from the kids instead of, good and fine, and some of the things that we normally hear when we ask them how their day was. Leo, that's a great question. Comparison to others is a thief of joy. And so if you're constantly comparing your three kids in the home, I know that's really hard for me to do. And, maybe we do that with my wife and I behind closed doors. But if you make this about a competition, there might be some other way that kids, choose to go. I do think that there's a lot of value in complementing and challenging and investing in that GT class with that student in front of your other kids. And so there's a visual that as your kids fight for attention within the home, like your oldest child is getting attention for what's going on in school, positive attention, right? And just the time from you and your wife. And so I think sometimes that visual at home, that when we're always talking to my oldest about what he's doing in math class, or we're talking to my middle child about how it's going in fourth grade this year, hopefully the younger child gets that picture that if I want attention for the positive, or if I want my parents to be even more invested in me than hopefully we already are, it comes through things academically, right? It comes through that challenge and those expectations. But I love that question, and I think the more kids you have, the harder it is, right? Because there's only so much of you to give, and in some ways, balancing that is the beauty of it, having a big family. Yeah, thanks, Lamont. I think I actually got that from some research actually about adolescence and just getting them to engage with their parents or with others. Otherwise, we're going to get those cookie cutter answers for sure. Yeah, I mean, Miss Tristan, I mean, goodness gracious, I think about that too, right? You've got so much pressure on the youngest, who in many ways didn't have the same attention from parents as the oldest child did, right? So most of our youngest children are victims of birth order, and we parent our second and third children like we should have, right? And we parent our first children like they're rookies, and we're all over their every move. Managing those expectations. Bringing back those high expectations, regardless of where they're at in the birth order, I think is a signal to our kids that we believe in them. And in every experience I've had in education and parenting, and certainly in coaching, our students, our own kids at home, will rise to the level of expectations that we have for them. I think it sounds maybe unpopular in today's day and age, where we're very concerned about social emotional health, and we're very concerned about the well-being and the mental fragility of our kids. But our students will rise to the occasion the more that we challenge them. And I think from a parent's perspective, embracing the challenge that your teachers are putting in front of the kids as well is it makes really good for the partnership. Now, high expectations does not mean more work necessarily, right? Rigor does not mean more work. But as teachers, we're trying to push the thinking on the students, right? At the end of the day, teachers are exhausted from putting on 5 or 6 shows during the day, but it's really the kids who should be exhausted from reading, writing, thinking, analyzing, collaborating, producing work for us, and then going home and reinforcing some of those things as well. Marissa, the easy button here are the standardized tests and the grades and the things that you'll get from that. But I think it's more than that. I think it's a disengagement, or it's a detachment from the work itself. So if your students are not wanting to do homework, if they can't explain to you what they're doing in class, that's probably an even bigger warning sign. You know, doing homework takes a lot of shapes and forms between cheating and skimming and AI and all this other stuff. But if they can't explain to you what they did in science class today or math class, right? Those are 45 or 50 minutes that maybe were wasted. And so I wonder if the specificity of questions from parent to child also extend to, you know, specifically what were you covering today in English, right? And what did your teacher have you do in science, so that you're constantly checking to see if they are engaged in class. A lot of our gifted kids, right? Here's the stereotype. They're super smart and they're super talented, but they don't always work up to their potential. So I'm working with the teachers on how to motivate the students to have their work ethic match their intelligence, because we know that they're smart, right? And I think as parents, if we're working on, you know, at the very least, we've got to stay engaged in school, so that if you don't have a lot of time outside of school, or you're not going to commit a lot of time to practicing more or doing more homework, you're getting the absolute most out of those 8 hours that you're there, and soaking in as much as your teachers are willing to give you. Appreciate that. Good question.
Hey, Andrew. I kind of have a question. So we're a military family and we tend to have to change schools every 2 years. So having the expectations between like the student-teacher relationship and with GT, we've started out in GT, then we went to a school district that had no GT programs, was very understaffed and teachers, and they had dual classes. So it was 2 grades for one teacher. And then coming here, how would you manage expectations to help your child achieve more realistic expectations with changing school districts and everything consistently?
I think it's a situation actually I'm somewhat familiar with. So the research behind military says that if one person gets deployed, it actually has a negative effect on student achievement, because you've had a disruption in the home. If the entire family moves, right, and keeps moving, and is in, you know, 7 schools in 5 different years or whatever it is, most of those military families and students achieve very highly. And I've seen the examples of this at Pearl Harbor Elementary School and the high schools around Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Most of those kids have been in a different school every year. They're structured, they're adaptable, they're social, and they use their skills, right, of having to get into a new place and a new environment all the time to their for the positive. And so I would lean towards leaning on your students' strengths. If that is the case, if you've moved, if you haven't put roots in because of your family situation, right? Your student in many ways probably has a lot of those strengths that the other kids in the class don't have, because their environment doesn't experience that disruption. So we highlight on those, we play off of those. We make sure that students are aware that those are strengths of theirs, so that they can use those to become more adaptable, to sink in for however long that you're at the school or in that space, and that they've done this before and they have the experience of being the new kid and trying to make the best of the situation. All right, Elizabeth, maybe I scared them all away, but last time I looked, there were 35 and now there's 59 people here. So that's still a good thing.
Yes. We got a lot of people. If you have questions, guys, please feel free to ask either in the chat or unmute yourself. Don't be shy.
I do have a question. Hi, everybody. My name is Yvette Elizondo, and I'm currently in San Antonio, Texas.
What's up, Yvette?
I have 2 kids. One is a 2nd grader, and the other one is a 5th grader. It's interesting. Well, it's not interesting. My 2nd grader is the one who is in GT class, and my 5th grader is not. So sometimes I seem to, oh, excuse me. Sometimes I feel like I don't acknowledge, they're both very smart, both of them. But I feel like sometimes I kind of make it seem like it's not such a big deal that my younger one is in GT because the older one isn't. And I realize that that's not, that's where the not having high expectations of my older one, right? So how could I like, how would, could you offer any help in that type of situation?
I mean, I don't know if this answers your question, but I'm speaking to you as a father now too. I think one thing I've learned is patience. And, you know, I had a kindergartner who was probably a grade level or two behind. And, you know, I'm comparing him to his brothers who are 80th, 90th percentile type students. And so we got him a tutor. We sunk in a little bit more at home, reading before bed. We tried to limit screen time and made him earn that because we know he likes to watch a show here and there. But you know, we try to turn up the expectations at the same time, be patient, knowing that he's not his brothers. He's never going to be his brothers. And maybe it's timely because we were just at parent-teacher conferences today, but he's in second grade now and he's fully caught up. So within 18 months, right, this kid who I thought was far and away behind, you know, his brothers now has caught up. And instead of looking at it as a challenge, I think we look at it as an opportunity, and we throw as many good pitches as we possibly can to support and hold them to high expectations. And you know, one of the things I tell the teachers all the time is that sometimes we get that like "ay bendito pobrecito" like syndrome where we feel so bad for the kids that are struggling with something, whether they're high expectations or not, that we lower the task that we're asking them to do. And so that will not help kids. Research says that will not help kids. We have to raise the standard, but then also provide support. And I think that goes for teachers and it also goes for parents. So the last thing I want to do at 8 o'clock at night sometimes is sit down in that chair and have him read the book to me. And he's probably thinking the same thing, but the expectations from us, right, are going to be felt when we're consistent with practices like that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you.
So a question in the chat box about scholarship for kids from middle schools and early high school. I don't know how it works in Texas. I know that if there's any type of scholarship money in programs, it usually comes on the entrance exam. You know, we don't know diagnostically a ton about students who are 14 and under. So they would take an entrance exam, a diagnostics exam. Maybe that would be their 8th grade STAR test or something like that. But that's typically the way on how it would work in from middle school into high school. That would only be your private schools, the ones that are tuition based. I can tell you from a high school into college standpoint, students now are being judged a lot less on how they score on tests. In fact, many colleges are test optional. So if you don't like your kid's test score, you don't even have to submit it to that college. So what the college now is looking at is what classes did they take and how they perform in those classes. So challenging classes and then also the grades that they get in those classes might be the number one way that your kids are going to earn scholarships.
I see we have a hand raised. Did you have a question for us?
I have a very specific personal question. My youngest is in GT. He's an elementary kid, but the oldest, who's a high schooler, is not a GT. But I see your profile and it says you have proven success in elevating AP scores. And so I was hoping I can somehow touch base with you on that part, maybe outside of the meeting, because I don't know if everybody else is interested in hearing more about that.
No problem. My email address is in the chat box, and my website is also in the chat box as well. Before we said so I was hired by the school district to come in and provide professional development over the summer. And when I was approached, you know, about joining this parent group, you know, everybody in the district was like, "Well, we'll help you sell your book, or we'll get your book out there, whatever promotion you want to do, or whatever." Like, I'm just a parent and I'm an educator in 20 years. And I don't make money as an author, really. And so my mission is just to help others do some of the things that we've seen success with. And that's where I get my energy. And so if you are interested at all, though, the books and the literature on this are available on my website. They're available on Amazon. And I am happy to engage with anybody who wants to talk about coaching, teaching, parenting, and more specifically, if you want to talk AP, that's kind of my baby. So please email me or check out my website and check out the books. That'd be awesome.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yep, no problem, no problem.
I have another question. So, with high achieving kids, I'm sure we can all agree that they can be very hard on themselves. How can I explain to my sixth grader like a palatable answer of, yes, I have high expectations, so should you, but getting 100 on every exam is not realistic or achievable. Like, how can I get him to be more accepting? If not, I don't want to say failure because an 88 isn't a failure, but how can I explain like the balance there to him?
That's a great question. And our heart breaks like when our kids are not satisfied with what they're doing and like they're doing completely fine. So one line I like to use a lot is whenever your own son or daughter puts themselves down or their performance down or whatever, say to them, don't talk about my daughter that way. Do not talk about my son that way, right? Like defend them as your son or daughter, right? So do not speak about yourself that way because that hurts me, right? And I'm going to defend you. So I think that's one part. But one of the other parts that I've researched and written about is the idea of creating goals. And that can be something that teachers do with students. It could be something that parents do with their students. And so if they're dissatisfied with the 88 that they got on the last test, like let's set a goal that on the next test you're going to get an 89 or a 90. For some kids that aren't gifted, right? Our goal between teacher and student is let's go a week without putting your head down on your desk, right? It seems like that's really elementary or beneath them, right? But for that kid, that small goal of paying attention and keeping, not sleeping in class, like that could be something where students start to see confidence and progress. That's what we're after. Confidence and progress and the belief that they can do it. And so, what happens when they don't meet their goals, right? Well, then you set a new goal, right? And maybe you make that even higher because we're still trying to push kids towards their expectations. But I think we move past the idea of being upset at ourselves or putting pressure on ourselves. This is not about getting 100. This is about meeting our goals. And so if that's a C student and we're getting all B's and a C, like we're moving towards a goal. And I think when students see the progress, their confidence starts to grow and you will hear less of that, like, negative self-talk.
I like that a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, give it a shot. Parenting is trial and error, right? I can't claim to be an expert that way. And I think hopefully, Deanna, that answers your question, right? Addressing perfectionism, overcoming the frustrations, trying to nip that in the bud and grow their confidence as best you can.
Brian had a question
Yeah,
too.
go
I
ahead.
don't know if
Go
you
ahead.
saw Brian's question about what would you do to suggest focus the energy of a student. Did you see that one?
I don't know if I saw that one. Might have to go back.
Brian C.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, this is really going to depend on their age, right? One of the things that we have students do is when they want to take like 4 AP classes, we have them fill out a form and they have to go to every teacher and figure out how many hours of homework there will be for all those classes. And then they have to write down all the hours that they're in clubs or that all the hours that they work or all the hours that they're committed to other things. And the idea is that, we want students to see that sometimes the hours are just, they're adding up too much, right? And we have to narrow our focus on what we really love to do. So, we're seeing this in society more as we're forcing kids to choose one sport very early, so they commit just to that. But as you know, having a well-rounded kid is something that's going to serve them best. I think a lot of times it's just waiting to see where their passion area lies, and exposing them to as many things as they possibly can so they can figure out what they love.
Leo had a question kind of similar to that about the fine line of allowing them to be kids and being involved in stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm most impressed when students can do a little bit of everything. I think the term is like a Renaissance man or woman, that they have a variety of different skill sets. And I'd like to think that the money that we're spending in piano lessons and things like that are activating different parts of their brain. And I'd like to think that the kids singing in the choir is gonna help them in school somehow. Certainly team sports, individual sports, you're learning more about yourself, you're learning more about others, and I think all of that contributes to a more well-rounded student. I'm sure there's data to support that. I couldn't cite any though.
And I think Leo had, or Deanna, I think you might have addressed that one though.
Yeah, I tried to lump that in with the perfectionism and students being too hard on themselves and what we can do as parents.
And then Allie had her hand raised. Allie,
Yeah,
did you have a question?
yes. Hey, Andrew, thank you for all the insights. It's just super helpful. I was curious, taking a step back from like the sort of individual parenting approach, in our community, in our school, we've sort of seen the enrollment in GT just slowly decrease a bit, right? We had some kids move, et cetera. And it's a little bit more of a socioeconomically diverse area too. Do you have any advice? So, I've had three kids go through the program. My youngest is in elementary right now. I think it's tremendous. I think it's amazing resources. The time they spend with the teachers is GT teachers is excellent. But we've gone from having a teacher in the school full time to having one that's split between two schools. Any advice, and as you've been part of this community for some time, that you would give for us that are parents of kids in GT program to sort of encourage and foster within our communities more involvement, more parents seeking out the opportunity for their kids? Because I believe there's plenty more kids that should probably be in the program that are not. Maybe the parents are not as involved, or they haven't for whatever reason. So I'm just from a community standpoint, how do you think we could foster more engagement?
Well, I really appreciate the comment, despite the trend that you're noticing. And I would say if we don't tell our story, somebody else will. And so, whatever reputation the program has, whatever the local newspaper or the watchdogs or whatever, parents who are on Facebook and social media that don't have maybe the most holistic view of what's actually happening in the program, if we don't tell that story and we don't message that as a community to the community, somebody else will. Someone will take a hold of that messaging. So the way that you speak about this program and what it's done for your three kids and how you feel about the teachers has to be sort of shouted on a mountaintop, right? And so those less engaged parents can realize that they're missing out on something for their student. So I'll give you an example. We used to run a camp in the summer that was like a skills boost camp. And year after year, we'd start to track the data of the kids that came versus the kids who didn't come. And it's summer, it's voluntary, it's an extra program, it wasn't required at all. But lo and behold, the kids that came to the summer program had better grades and better test scores than the kids who didn't. So we would message that every year when we'd invite kids to the summer program. If your kid joins this program, they have a 15% better chance of passing the AP test or whatever it was. Well, you put that data out in front of parents. Now you start to create that urgency of like, whoa, like, what am I missing? If I don't do this for my kid, or if I don't advocate for my student, they're missing out, right? So that's the messaging. And I think that's the story that we have to tell, just like you did, of some of the positive outcomes that are happening. And I think that's how your program grows in both reputation and also results.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
This has been an amazing conversation. I really
Yes.
appreciate all of you and the time that you've given to this tonight. Very, very fun. Very cool for me. Yeah, I think, Brian, I think to your point, right? We let our kids' performance do the talking. And they don't need to brag. We don't need to brag. They just need to work, and they just need to think, and they need to read and write and engage, and whatever accolades or things that come from that. Of course, like, we're beaming with pride from the inside, but I guess that's one thing that my mom always did really well. It was, sitting watching games and talking to other parents. All they're doing is bragging about how great their kids are. And you just kind of sit there and listen and know that your kid's performance or how proud you are of your kid, it's going to show whether you're talking about it or not. Jenna Lynn, your question might be better answered by Elizabeth or some of our parent leaders in here about the program on GT eligibility.
Yes, GT goes all the way
Yeah,
through
yeah,
high school,
yes.
depending on, it is optional in high school, however, because in high school, you want to do band and sports and everything like that. It is an elective course, but it does go through high school. If you're in middle school and you're doing a magnet program, then they don't have GT at the magnet schools, but usually that magnet school is GT enriched on its own. So I hope that helps, but we are hoping to have more sessions on as far as that goes.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate everyone. Thank you for the comments in the chat box. Amazing questions. And hopefully I took my author and maybe researcher and educator hat off on and just talk to you as a parent a little bit more, right? None of us have all the answers. Parenting is trial and error. But hopefully we've given you a little insight into how to best support your students.
Thank you, Andrew. We appreciate it. We do have one announcement before we end the meeting. Does anybody have anything else for Mr. Sharos before we say goodbye? Just a lot of thank yous, it looks like. So thank you again, Mr. Sharos.
Yeah, appreciate you all.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. And this is Andrew's book. If you're interested, the QR code is there for you. He also just reposted his information in case you ever want to reach out or do anything as far as that is concerned. Yeah. Can y'all see my screen?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. We wanted to announce the winner of our t-shirt contest before we let everybody go real quick. The winner of our t-shirt contest is going to get this beautiful Raising Cane's gift basket donated to us by Rob Roshi at Raising Cane's on 7020 Bandera Road. Comes with a cooler, everyday cane plush puppy, some free gift cards, and Raising Cane's logo magnet, and some lip balm, which I didn't know was a thing. So our winner is Anzel Del Carmen. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, from Rayburn Middle School. So congratulations, and we'll get you that gift basket hopefully very soon, next week sometime. And we are going to start ordering shirts. We're going to make those available, I'm hoping tomorrow, and that'll be posted on all of our social medias. So please keep a lookout for that. We are working on all the details right now. So this is our beautiful design. That will be our GTEAC shirts for our fundraiser. Again, all fundraisers go to help support the GT program, GT teachers, and GT seniors with scholarships. And this is our next big fundraiser. Mr. Sharos, you're welcome to participate as well because it works for any Panda Express nationwide.
Well, you had me at Raising Cane's earlier.
But this is for any Panda Express, even in Chicago. And you use that code, it'll be on Halloween night. And I believe that is all. Any questions or anything? Congratulations.
Question.
Yes.
Mr. Andrew, is your book available on Kindle?
It's I'm sorry, Kindle?
Yeah.
Yep, it's on Kindle. Yep, you'd have to get it on Amazon, but yep. It's a lot cheaper to do it that way.
Yes.
Okay, I don't see it, but I'll find it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, should be Barnes and Noble, Amazon. It's out there.
Okay. 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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. We appreciate y'all coming. And we will start posting about our t-shirts and our Panda fundraiser on October 31st. Thank you, Mr. Sharos, again for
Have
everything.
a great night, everyone.
Bye.